Hi, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mateo Chavez Lewis, and welcome back to Music Theater Theory. Today we're talking about Parade. This is one of my favorite musicals of all time. It opened on Broadway in 1998 with a book by Alfred Urey and music and lyrics by Jason Robert Brown, one of my favorite composers whose work we've looked at a lot on the channel. And this, Parade, was actually his first Broadway show. Parade tells the true story of Leo Frank, a Jewish man living in Georgia in 1913, who gets wrongly convicted of the murder of a young girl due to the widespread anti-Semitism in Georgia. Now, one of the things that's very interesting about the musical is it focuses a lot on the relationship between Leo Frank and his wife, Lucille. You know, initially it doesn't seem like they're very much in love. It kind of seems like they got married out of convenience. But as all of these horrible things start to happen to Leo, Lucille fights viciously to get his name cleared. And in a strange way, this tragedy brings them together. And we get to watch them fall truly in love, maybe for the first time. I was recently in New York where I had the amazing experience of seeing the recent Broadway revival of Parade. And the production recently won a Tony Award for Best Revival of a Musical. It was directed by Michael Arden, who is well known as an actor for playing Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame in the original La Jolla Playhouse production. But he's also an acclaimed director, having directed the Deaf West revival of Spring Awakening and the Broadway revival of Once on This Island. And the production stars Michaela Diamond and Ben Platt as Lucille and Leo Frank, respectively, both of whom were nominated for Tony Awards this year for their roles. Anyways, they absolutely blew the roof off the place when I saw it with their 11 o'clock number duet called All the Wasted Time. So that is what I'm going to be looking at today. So they sing this song when Lucille comes to visit Leo in jail. He's been in jail for something like 2 years at this point, and it is implied that they haven't had a chance for a conjugal visit since he was accused all that time ago. The song starts like this. I will never understand what I did to deserve you, or how to be the man that I'm supposed to be. I will never understand if I live 1,000 lifetimes why you did the things you did for me. This whole, I will never understand, that line is a reference to It's Hard to Speak My Heart, which Leo sings at the end of the first act. He stands up in front of the jury when he's giving his statement, and he says, I stand before you now, incredibly afraid. I pray you understand. Which is just the same melody in a different key, right? I pray you understand, and It's Hard to Speak My Heart, and then I will never understand in All the Wasted Time. Just look at you. How could I not be in love with you? What kind of fool could have taken you for granted for so long? All the wasted time, all the million hours pushing you away, building up my wall. All of Leo Frank's big songs are linked together by this one interval in the piano accompaniment. It's called an open fourth, which basically means 2 notes that are 4 notes apart, 1, 2, 3, 4, and have no other notes between them. Open fourth. Leo's first song in the show is called How Can I Call This Home, and it kind of introduces us to his anxious, uptight psyche, and it introduces us to the longing he feels for his home in Brooklyn. And we get this. When I look out on all this, how can I call this home? And there's that perfect fourth. Then, in It's Hard to Speak My Heart, we get this intro, which is almost the exact same thing, but just without the notes in between. So instead of, we get this. It's hard to speak my heart. I'm not a man who bears his soul. I let the moment pass me by. The whole thing is based around this open fourth again. It comes back yet again at the beginning of This Is Not Over Yet, where the hesitant, consistent sound of that quarter note rhythm, da, 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 gets replaced by this very excitable, syncopated rhythm. Which is still centered around that open fourth. Right? That's the interval there, those two notes. So we get it in How Do I Call This Home? We get it in It's Hard to Speak My Heart, and we get it in This Is Not Over Yet. So it's no surprise then that there is a perfect fourth hidden in the accompaniment of All the Wasted Time. That rhythm there. Look at the top two notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is, perfect fourth. It's the same thing as It's Hard to Speak My Heart, just in a different key, obviously, and then in a changing rhythm. So we have this interval, which is a very kind of solid, stable, grounded interval. This interval knows what's right and wrong. This interval feels very strong. It's not super passionate. It's not a major or a minor interval. It's perfect, which means that it kind of sits in between major and minor. And it could turn into a major chord if you add a major third, or it could turn into a minor chord if you add a minor third. But this interval on its own doesn't have a lot of emotion. It doesn't have a lot of passion. Like I said, very stable. So that kind of represents Leo Frank's character, right? He doesn't go too far in either direction. He keeps a very even keel. He stays where he's comfortable. But then we take that sound and we add a bunch of other rhythms to it to affect the way that Leo Frank is feeling in those moments. So in It's Hard to Speak My Heart, he's feeling very careful, hesitant, making sure that he's choosing all the right words. So it's this consistent quarter note rhythm. In How Can I Call This Home, there's like a longing almost, and that's created by this like, this kind of back and forth feeling. And then in This Is Not Over Yet, he's super excited, so it's all those added notes, make it feel like it's going really, really fast, and the syncopation where the perfect fourth doesn't always fall exactly on the beat. So instead of where it's always falling on the beat, we get this right, the syncopation. And then in All the Wasted Time, because it's a very romantic song, we get this waltz tempo. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. All the days gone by, to glare, to pout, to push you out, and I never knew anything at all. I never knew anything at all. And then the key changes to G major because Lucille is about to sing. Here we get a problem that has puzzled composers since the dawn of time. A man and a woman have to sing a love duet. That probably means you have to change the key. However, in the quote-unquote golden age of musical theater, the 1940s through to the 1960s, the convention was that the leading man would be a bass baritone, whereas the romantic leading lady would be a soprano. So you didn't have to change the key because the baritone could just sing it the full octave down. If I Loved You from Carousel, for example, has Billy Bigelow and Julie Jordan singing the same melody in the same key, D-flat major. The top notes of the melody, F and G flat, are really good notes for a soprano to sing. I love you! Right? It sounds very soprano, it sounds beautiful. But those notes are not too high for a baritone to sing down the octave. How I loved you! Whereas the low notes, like this D flat, are nice, deep, and rumbly for a baritone. If I loved you! Without being totally out of reach for the soprano to sing in her octave. If I loved you. So that works. However, nowadays, you often have tenors or altos in romantic leading roles, which makes it a lot harder for them to both sing in the same key. For example, Lucille is an alto mezzo, while Leo Frank is a baritone. In Leo's range, an E flat is pretty comfortable. All the days gone by. But in Lucille's range, E flat is one of her top most powerful notes. So if she sang it in the same key, all the days gone by, it would obviously have a very different effect. So Jason Robert Brown very wisely decided to save that E flat for the climax of the song and lower the key for Lucille to sing in a more comfortable range here, which brings us to the second part of the problem. Key changes are very powerful, dramatic musical effects. They represent a major shift in mood or thought. Think of the big key change up at the end of every Broadway 11 o'clock number that shows that the protagonist is learning something new. It's a very triumphant effect. We don't want to have that effect right now. This isn't the climactic moment of the song. There isn't a big shift in mood or thought right now. Lucille hasn't even started singing yet. So we're in this situation where we have to change keys for a very practical reason, the vocal ranges of the singers, but we don't want to change keys for the emotional effect. We don't want the audience to hear this key change because it'll have an emotional impact that isn't right for this moment in the song. So the way that Jason Robert Brown solves this problem is that he hides the key change in a change from major to minor. Leo is singing in B flat major, which has a B flat and an E flat in it. Another scale with the exact same notes is G minor. It's just the same notes, but starting on G. So when you change from B flat major, I'm in B flat major now, to G minor, there you go. Now I'm in G minor. You don't really hear any difference. It's the exact same notes being played. So what Jason Robert Brown does is he takes us from B flat major to G minor first, which is a tiny little difference. You don't even notice it as a key change. And then, now that we're in G minor, he just turns that into G major, which is a relatively small change. Because we're not going up, we're not going down, we're just going from minor to major. But suddenly now we're down 3 semitones from where we were before. We were in B flat, and now we're in G. And that's a way more comfortable key for Lucille to sing it in. So we're in B flat major. I never knew anything at all. Then here we're in G minor, right? And then we go from G minor to I never knew anything at all. G major. So it's totally hidden. You barely even notice a key change. Compare that, right, to if the key change was very noticeable, it would have an emotional effect that feels weird for the moment. Like imagine if it went, I never knew anything at all. Right, like this big huge key change, that would be kind of weird for this moment. So arguably you can tell that the key change she used was just there for a practical reason. The key change itself isn't intended to have emotional impact here. That's why it's hidden away like it is. I will never understand how all the world misjudged you when I have always known how lucky I must be. I will never understand how I kept from going crazy, just waiting there till you came home to me. Just look at me now that you're finally here with me. Now that I know I was right to wait and everyone else was so wrong for so long. All the wasted time. I want to take a moment here to pause and talk about the rhythm of the piano accompaniment, because this rhythm is like Jason Robert Brown's favorite rhythm for piano. It's in It All Fades Away from the Bridges of Madison County. It all fades away. Right? It's in If I Didn't Believe in You from the Last 5 Years. I've actually done analyses of both those songs on this channel. Links in the description. There's something beautiful about it though. Like I get why he keeps reusing it. The way it works, it's built around an octave, where the bottom note is played 3 times per beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the top note is played 2 times per beat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, which creates this 2/3 polyrhythm. Meaning one note gets played twice in the same amount of time as the other note gets played 3 times. It's a really cool sound, right? It creates this like rolling, sweeping, flowing feeling. Anyways, I just love that sound, and JRB uses it a lot. Wasted time, wasted time, hours, years on top of years, still too proud to cry. The days gone by to feel that I don't satisfy, and I never knew anything at all. I never knew anything at all. All the wasted time, all the million hours, leaves too high to touch, roots too strong to fall. Wow, what a climax! See, this key change is supposed to have emotional impact. So it's not hidden away, right? It's played with these big accented notes in the left hand of the piano. Bum, 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 bum. It's accentuated by a forte dynamic, meaning loud. It's this big emotional explosion, boom. And this is the moment for it. Also that's Lucille's high E flat. Doesn't it hit you like a truck? Aren't you glad we saved it for the climactic moment by lowering the key before? Also, I just quickly want to point out the lyric there. Leaves too high to touch, roots too strong to fall. There are a lot of references to trees in the lyrics of this whole show, and it relates to the idea of the tree that Leo was eventually hanged from. I never got to see the original production of this show because, well, I was not born when it opened. But apparently the tree was a very big part of the staging. In the very first words of the whole show, the Confederate soldier sings, "I've carved our names in the trunk of this tree." And I've heard, though I cannot verify this anywhere, that that tree ended up being the tree that Leo got hanged from in the original production, which I think would be a very powerful artistic choice. To say that metaphorically, Leo was hanged off of this tree of Confederate pride. Again, though, I haven't been able to verify that anywhere. Fact check me in the comments if you did see the original production. I love being fact checked if I'm wrong. All the days gone by to never show I loved you so, and I never knew anything at all. I never knew anything at all. And there's Leo's big note, which is an F. Now, here is one thing about the revival production that felt strange to me. Leo is a baritone. The part was originally played on Broadway by Brent Carver, an absolutely incredible actor we sadly lost a few years ago. He was a baritone. He was also a fellow Canadian. But when he sang an F, he was getting close to the top of his range, so it had the power that came with that. Ben Platt, on the other hand, shot to stardom in Dear Evan Hansen. And in his big song in Dear Evan Hansen, Waving Through a Window, Ben Platt is belting a high B flat. Waving! Which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 semitones higher, nearly half an octave. And in some of his solo pop songs, Ben Platt belts a high C in full chest voice. Like he sings, "I can't stop chasing you." He is a mega tenor. So when you've got someone with that kind of range singing this baritone part, it lacks the same kind of power. It feels like Ben Platt's still got the lid on. You know, instead of being at all this big huge sound that it should be, it kind of ends up sounding a bit at all, a bit just like a normal note. Obviously I'm exaggerating to make a point, but at no point in this show does Ben Platt have the chance to go even close to the top of his range. And it's a little disappointing for me, honestly, because I love hearing Ben Platt sing high. But overall, this is just such a beautifully constructed song. And it really gives the audience the chance to witness the love between Leo and Lucille, which makes it all the more tragic that the scene immediately following this song is Leo's lynching. It's a heartbreaking, true story. And though it takes place in the early 1900s, make no mistake, anti-Semitism is alive and well today. There were actually a group of neo-Nazis protesting outside the theater on the night of the Parade Revival's first preview. So this story is unfortunately incredibly relevant right now. Anyways, this has been a little bit about All the Wasted Time from Parade. Here is a playlist analyzing some more amazing songs. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! That's it.